Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into this week's edition of the Duval Dive. Of course, I'm Kyle Nash, student of the game of Fans First Sports Network. A lot of fun times going on. We're reaching into that mailbag. For once today, Travis isn't at practice. Don't worry, he already has been earlier this week. That's what he does. But without any further ado, we're going to talk a little bit more Jaguars. Your O-line questions. We're finally getting there. I promised you. Hell, I've been looking forward to it the whole time. So let's go ahead and bring in my personal champion, Travis D. Holmes. What's going on, man? But hey, listen, first, before we get off the ground, and I got Travis here, just a quick announcement that the video portion of the Duval Dive will only be exclusively on the Duval Dive YouTube channel. So make sure you like and subscribe there. What is it? June 2nd, that Monday is when we make the flip officially. We're planning to have Big Game James on the show here soon. So I'm leaving that in Travis's hands because he's the one arranging that. But yeah, so it's going to be a brave new world here. But the podcast is still the same. Everything's still rolling. I'm excited for it, Travis. We'll announce more about why all of this is later on. But it's going to be an exciting time, Travis. What can I say?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, if you please like and subscribe us on the Duval Dive YouTube, so you continue getting your dive, your Jacksonville Jaguars information via the podcast, and obviously keep following our writing on Fans First Sports Network, BigCatCountry.com. But let's go digging into this mailbag today, sir.
We would be remiss if we did not throw thanks to the Sports Media Dan and Sir Toba Media for their support with the Duval Dive thus far. There you go.
Yes, sir.
Can't leave it at that. But enough of this. The question. It's time for the question. At 904 Funk. See, I love your Discord, guys. Come to play, man. Anyways, since NSFB doesn't want to ask silly questions, he's referencing, of course, the hot take, the spicy take, the crackhead tape episode of the Duval Dive that just recently aired. I guess it's a week and a half ago now, something like that. But anyways, I'll go ahead and ask a thought-provoking one. With the dust essentially settled on the offensive line front after free agency draft, the DFAs have come through. Who do you project to be the starting five? And ultimately, how many O-line on the roster come week one? My guess is 10 to 12. That is it's great that this show is called the Duval Dive, Travis, because I full-on need my scuba certification to dive into all of that. But first, the starting five of the O-line. I no matter what either of us answer, please take it with a grain of salt. Camp hasn't even started yet fully, so
no pass, man. This is Underwear Olympics, and we're having to make this decision with a new scheme, new coaching staff, and their judgment of players who they haven't actually practiced with. This is going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say up front, and we may both agree here, maybe we won't. I think the biggest layup week one is Ezra Cleveland at left guard. It may not happen, but I feel like he's the one that is the most obvious placement. Besides center, I suppose I should say too.
Oh yes, there we go. That's the big easiest layup for me. Yes.
Yeah. Hainsey was so easy, I skipped over it, so that's my bad. But I think we're in agreement that those two are the air quotes easiest ones. Certainly Hainsey easier than Cleveland. Yeah, I think you're right there 100%. But I mean, who down? Let's start at left tackle because I think that one is the one with the most flux. Sure, Walker Little has signed the extension real big under the Bulky administration. Robinson he's a Texan now. He's had 2 stops since he was the starting left tackle at one point here for your Jacksonville Jaguars. What's your make of that position? What do you think is going to happen?
So, yeah, I mean, you got Walker Little, and if it's not Walker Little, you're talking about allowing, Fred Johnson a legitimate opportunity, incoming free agent, tackle Fred Johnson an opportunity to truly start there. That feels like a tall task. I'm not going to say it's impossible, especially depending on how they feel about the run blocking. But I think, that feels like Walker Little's obviously the starting left tackle from my perspective, unless you're allowing something like Fred Johnson, unless you're allowing someone like a Patrick McCarry to actually start there, depending on what happens at right guard. So, yeah, I'm leaning Walker Little's going to be a starting left tackle until I see otherwise in pads or in preseason game situations.
Let me throw this in there, too. Is Anton Harrison on the table as a left tackle possibility? Because I know you and I on this show, granted, this was still with the Bulky administration. This was before James Gladstone, which, by the way, thanks to Casey of the Barking Browns podcast, I have the nickname for James Gladstone. Casey is calling him, keep in mind, this is a Browns fan. This is a man that hosts the Browns podcast. He's calling him Jimmy Stones. That's beautiful.
I mean, it's kind of nice, but at the same time, it makes sense because Browns fans were pissed off about the fact that they traded away, the picks for Travis Hunter instead of grabbing Travis Hunter. So I think that makes total sense.
I think it's tribute. He had the stones to make that trade.
It's tribute for James Gladstone while crapping on their own organization for doing the thing. Like basically, James Gladstone did what they wanted their team to do. So that makes total sense to me. Sure. It was absolutely ballsy in your first, season as this young rookie GM from Jacksonville, in my draft day terminology.
Okay, so now I get what you're getting at. That it's a good way to pay tribute to Jimmy Stones, but it's also a great way to talk schmack on that organization, which is a bigger fire than anything that's going on in the river up there. Whoa! Ooh,
that's it. So we got Walker Little at left tackle. I mean, I'm assuming Ezrick Cleveland feels hard.
You didn't answer my question yet. Anton Harrison is a possibility at left tackle. Like, do you think that's even in play?
I would love to believe it was possible because I think that with the versatility that they're leaning on in all of these guys, they want Anton Harrison to be able to play left tackle, so I think just from that perspective, if we saw him get reps at left tackle in preseason or something along those lines, I would not be surprised. Because again, they're leaning on versatility with all the guys that they brought in. So yeah, that makes some sense. Do I believe it's going to materialize and actually happen? Based on the play that I've seen, I wouldn't be able to say that, right? Like I think Walker Little's a much better run blocker than we've seen from Anton Harrison to date. I think that's going to be fair to everyone involved. So yeah, Anton Harrison, yes, he should be able to have that versatility, but also is that really going to happen where he's your left tackle? I would need to see a lot better run blocking to see that, to actually believe that was on the table.
I feel like I'm 60% confident that Walker Little is the left tackle. Only because I think Fred Johnson poses that big a threat as a veteran guy that has starting experience, right? And Anton Harrison, we'll even call it dark horse, but would you be surprised if he was placed on the depth chart, maybe even third at left tackle, if in the crap hitting the fan scenario, that is something that's happened on this team before, right? Anybody remember 2023? Okay. So, I throw that out there. I don't know, 60% or higher for you for Walker Little there.
I mean, I'm higher, but yes, I think it's going to be, you're probably talking like 80-85%. That's
okay. You calling it a lock? Okay, I'm not mad at it.
As close as a lock you're going to get is in a new organization. Before seeing how this, how he performs in this new scheme. But yes, I think pretty much Walker Little's going to be your guy in my opinion.
Yeah, cool. Because my thought process is 60% Walker Little, 20% Fred Johnson, 10 for Anton Harrison, and then because it all adds up to that doesn't add up to 30% for Fred Johnson, and then 10 more to Anton Harrison. So that's kind of my thought process. I'm saying basically, let's get the math in here, right? I'm saying Walker Little is twice as likely as Fred Johnson to get the spot. That's still pretty damn confident. Okay, I'm just throwing it out there. So anyway, you're like 3 times more confident in Walker Little starting at left tackle. Okay,
yes,
that's you're damn confident. That's what we're saying. Anyways, right guard with Brandon Scherf. We call it retiring, but he still technically hasn't yet. But nonetheless, with him no longer being in the building at right guard, what are you thinking there? I know the smart money allegedly is Makari at right guard. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, I think that has to be the lean. That there has to be Patrick Makari being the quote unquote big free agent signing, and it wasn't a big contract, but the big free agent signing of the offensive lineman. You kind of have to believe that he's going to have that edge. That was who they prioritized. Yeah, so for the moment, that is who's penciled in, for my opinion, in that right guard spot. You obviously got Wyatt Millum, the rookie that was drafted in the 4th round. Yeah, he's also transitioning from tackle to guard in the NFL, so I think he's automatically going to be your Cooper Hodges, your backup guard option, who may have a ceiling of being a starting level talent early on if he can, make that transition quickly. But we also know that at the Senior Bowl, he did have some issues or struggles in those individual matchups when put at guard. So he might need some time, and I wouldn't be crazy to kind of think that maybe your best case scenario with him may be looking in the first few weeks of the season, where he maybe the light clicks, or he turns it on or figures it out, something along those lines. So if we're talking week 1, I kind of have to believe Patrick McCarry has the inside lane. Wyatt Millum, if you can show us something early, then yeah, you have a great opportunity for him to be your guy. So if we want to do percentages again, I'm looking at 90%, 95%. You're looking at Patrick McCarry is going to be your starting right guard, and then Wyatt Millum has an opportunity to maybe kind of sneak in there and make this thing interesting.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of what you're saying is solid there too. But now we're touching on why I'm only 60% with Walker Little at left tackle, is because I think Walker Little might fight for that spot in itself too. If for whatever reason Patrick McCarry isn't starting at right guard, more on that in a bit, I feel like the next best candidate, with no disrespect to Wyatt Millum, I think the kid has plenty of potential. I'm not knocking it. But the next guy up at the right guard position has to be Walker Little, one would think, right? And, God forbid McCarry get injured, who would step in? You'd put Walker Little there. You put Johnson in at left tackle, who has veteran starts. You don't necessarily have that at the right guard spot.
So what makes you think that Walker Little will be the next man up at the right guard spot?
And I'm talking today, by the way, in week 1. That could change throughout the year as Wyatt Millum.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out the logic of how we got to from A to B. I'm just trying to figure out, Walker Little. Why would
Walker Little's filled in at guard in the past when he was the best guy up at the time. That's kind of what I'm leaning on.
All right, just to be objective, just to be real. I'm not trying to be, and I'm not demeaning the man's play. I'm just talking game film, reviewing the tape. Walker Little was not a good guard. He did not play well at guard, and he only played less than a game at guard because. So
he's telling me Wyatt Millum has a shot to be the second best candidate, but that has to play out at camp, does it not?
I think Walker Little's absolutely a tackle and a fine tackle. I just don't. If we're talking guard, I don't know that he has that inside lane. I might even view Cooper Hodges above the Walker. It's close enough there.
That's the controversial statement. You had me on everything until you got to that moment. I don't know about Cooper Hodges being
Cooper just can't stay. Cooper just can't stay healthy. That's been his biggest issue. It's not necessarily his play.
Well, so how do we know what he has? That's what I'm saying. We know what we have in Walker Little. While it's not great, it's passable and can do a lot of things to help you create a run game. It's definitely opportunity for both Hodges and Millum to step up and make something for themselves. I think that's a strong take by you. I really like that. I'll leave that at that, man. So cool. All right.
So we got left tackle. We got right guard.
Yep. So right tackle feels easy. ... But you're on this show saying it's possible that both Walker Little and Anton Harrison may not start at a tackle position. So Anton Harrison, though, as the incumbent, certainly feels like he has the slight advantage early on, but you're rubbing your hands together. You want to tell me something? What do you got? Come on now.
What I want to tell you is that 5% that I was talking about early, that's where I'm at. It's not this huge percentage. It's not this great take. It's a non-zero chance. It is, hey man, there's about this 5% chance. It don't feel like it's actually going to happen, but it's also not crazy to have this thought process that, hey, we prioritize the run blocking. Walker Little's an okay run blocker, but maybe we feel like Patrick McCarry is going to be a better run blocker at left tackle than if we conclude that after having pads on the grass. And then let's look at Anton Harrison. Well, he hasn't had a good run blocking season in his career, not in the NFL. That's just being objective. Cool. Right. Well, then maybe you want to put Wyatt Millum as your starting right guard, Patrick McCarry starting at one tackle spot. Maybe you want to put Fred Johnson at the other tackle spot because maybe you feel like he's a better starting, tackle as far as the run game, but just doesn't give you the juice in the passing game, kind of what we talked about on last week's episode with Jordan DeLuco, Generation Jags. Jordan DeLuco. He's like, hey man, this offensive line may not have the juice when you need them in the passing game, but they are probably going to be much more efficient, much better as far as the run game is concerned. And if you truly believe that theory is correct, which is kind of where I'm leaning, then yeah, this may be a different conversation or a different competition that many folks are talking about. So then all of a sudden, Fred Johnson and all of a sudden Patrick McCarry have a better chance of possibly like giving some real competition. Again, I'm talking maybe 5%, but it's not like crazy where it's like, would I be surprised if one of those two guys, Walker Little or Anton Harrison, is not starting? No, I think it's much higher than 5% at that point. If you're just talking just one of the guys, yeah. So it's going to come down to how these guys perform on the grass. And it may even feel like a real competition. And that should excite Jaguars fans with the state of this run game over the past few years.
Yeah, what you touched on there is kind of really what I'm getting at. Anton Harrison is the reason why Walker Little is only a 60% chance at the left tackle spot because, and I mentioned he could compete for right guard, but I really think there's a universe where you have Fred Johnson on the left, Walker Little on the right, and Anton Harrison is either continued to develop, he's the backup, or they're making their decisions on Anton Harrison and his future in this camp. That's what I think's going on.
That's fair. I've actually said this to a few people, and I don't think I've ever said it on the air, but I view this year as a contract year for Anton Harrison, even though
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If anybody's disagreeing with you, I'd love to hear why they think so. But yeah,
I don't think anybody's objectively agreed. It's just kind of one of those things where some people are higher, some people are lower, and I'm trying to be my best to be middle ground, but also like, hey, I think this is going to be it. Because if you're going to draft another right tackle, that's what it's going to be next year. They always, James Gladstone and Liam Cohen, they've always consistently spoken like, hey, it's about how many draft picks we have over the next 2 years, including 2025 and 2026. Then that means, hey, 2026, the NFL draft, if you have someone who's just not playing how you want them to play, that's when they get replaced. And they didn't draft the right tackle this year.
14 picks in the coming draft, right?
I think it's 12.
Okay. Is that all?
We may be in the right range.
They did send one of them. Like that. They did send one of them to Cleveland. That's fair. That's fair. So with that in mind, I think regardless of how you feel about Anton Harrison, maybe you love him, maybe you hate him, but I think that statement, as you worded it, that this is a contract year for Anton Harrison, is point blank the correct answer. What you're just really kind of commenting on is the percentage of likelihood that he gets replaced next offseason. That's all you're commenting on. You like if you think he's good, great. He'll be back. It'll be an easy decision for Jimmy Stones and Liam Cohen. If you don't, he got some mountain to climb. Me, I'm kind of in the middle. I need to see, it's time to show me development here in year 3, dude. Run block somebody, do the thing, beat out the new guy. If you could do all that, then you'll stay here on the club. You'll be fine. So,
yeah. So then you have the most difficult conversations. Well, I mean, we've already stated that Robert Hainsey is the easiest conversation. Robert Hainsey being backed up by Luke Fortner, being backed up by Jonah Monheim.
See, I think Monheim's going to pass Fortner up. I think that's going to happen.
Exactly. That feels like Monheim's the biggest competition for Fortner, but not necessarily going to be your early competition for Patrick Hainsey. Wow. Patrick Stewart. Lord. Yes. So
engage.
Then at that point, you're just having that conversation at center. It's pretty clear. And then you're talking left guard. Like, that's the hardest conversation, in my opinion, that Ezra Cleveland versus whoever kind of lands with that whole right guard conversation, whether that be Patrick McCarry, whether that be Wyatt Millum, whether that be, what was it, Adoga, who also has, tackle and guard flexibility, whether that be Fred Johnson, who has guard and tackle flexibility. All those guys have experience at guard, and if they don't win their respective competitions at tackle, possibly they can end up being your guy at guard if Ezra doesn't perform in the ways that we think he should in the scheme. Right. And we've already established that the Minnesota Vikings did move off of Ezra Cleveland when Grant Udinski was the offensive coordinator there. Like, we know this already happened.
We keep
so
saying
they might not like.
See, here's where I struggle.
It's not his decision. It's not his decision.
Right.
But if the scheme is similar as far as the run game and the man gap versus the zone flipping back and forth is similar, which it is, then there's that conversation of, will it work in Jacksonville if it didn't work in Minnesota? And it could be the people around you, could be small things, just development over the last few years. But that's a question that should be answered on the grass, and I think is a reasonable one to ask.
Well, yeah, and I think, or it could be a Christian Kirk scenario. Maybe they were just going to have to pay him too much money. I don't know enough about his previous contract, but there's so many other things it could be. You mentioned fit. I was going to bring up Evan Ingram. You also bring up the point that fit is a thing that should be fine for him moving from this. If he wasn't comfortable in that previous scheme, how is he going to be comfortable here is a fair question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
But at day's end, I think the guard decision is less about, at the left guard, it is less about how good Ezra Cleveland is and more about how many potential strugglers there are on the other side. At the end of the day, at least Ezra Cleveland is a veteran and can at least do a better job of, air quotes, faking it. Now, you mentioned the other options that could be go in. Maybe that'll be the surprise. Is one of these other guys that are brought in, one of these versatility dudes, replaces Cleveland. That's a very real thing. So this is why the offensive line conversation is so compelling, Travis Holmes.
Yeah, that Ezra Cleveland one is the one that's going to feed families or destroy them at Thanksgiving. Like, I don't know, that because it feels like it's still got to be his inside lane to win.
Right.
But I don't see that at 60% at all. At that point, I'm like, hey man, I'm at like 50, like 50%,
50 for him, and then everybody else splits up the other 50. That makes
50
sense.
for him, 50 for the field. That's it. Because there's so many guys with so many skill sets that, all right, cool. Depending on how everything else falls, if all of a sudden it's Patrick McCarry, but all right, maybe I'll put Patrick at left guard, or maybe because if they really are serious about this whole I want the best 5 guys on the field, then hey man, that can be so many conversations. That's 5 guys competing for that left guard spot potentially, depending on how this thing lands. So,
but if you're a member of the if you're a member of the Duval Devout, this is the conversation you want happening. You can guarantee that at least every position has the potential to be upgraded. We know we didn't see that last season, where basically all they got was the center replaced. No disrespect, because I thought I thought Morse played well. I didn't think he was a bad player. I didn't think he was eons better, but yeah, I thought he did a good enough job.
Yeah, anyway. I mean, he played fine, and and friend of the pod, Dan Griffin's Action Sports Jacks, he had his general opinion of kind of how this thing was going to land or how the offensive line could materialize, and I wanted to give him a shout out on that. He had the overhaul of the Jacksonville Jaguars line with 6 of the 14 O linemen on the roster right now are new. Wyatt Millum only allowed 1 quarterback hit since 2022 in college. Monheim only allowed a sack at interior, has not allowed a sack at interior O line, and he kind of just gave his outlook of how many guys we have that can play these multiple positions. Kind of, we already talked about Walker Little, Anton Harrison, Cole Van Lannon, all playing tackle, with Chuba Edoga also playing tackle. You got Ezra Cleveland, Patrick McCarry, Wyatt Millum, and Cooper Hodges as your guard options. And again, we didn't talk much about Cooper Hodges, which other than my quote unquote hot take.
I see, and the problem with that is we don't know what we have from him yet. We as
injury,
people,
scheme, same thing.
Exactly. We that observe football, regardless of our fanhood, just haven't seen enough yet. He could surprise us all and be a starter. We don't know.
He's been promising multiple off seasons in a row. It's just the fact that we can't stay healthy, but it's the offensive line. You want to give him all the rope you can have, because you just don't want to miss out on having that, especially with the exploding value of the guard contracts. You get one good year out of him, and it's worthwhile. So yeah, you got Robert Hainsey, Luke Fortner, and Jonah Monheim as your center options, with Fred Johnson, Javon Foster, and Dennis Daly, I believe, as your final guys, fighting for those last spots. So to answer the original question, you got 14 guys on the roster right now at O-line. The question is, do you keep 10 guys? Do you ramp that up to 12? And with you, obviously, you're going to save at least one roster spot with the whole Travis Hunter playing 2 positions thing. But nevertheless, that's going to become that bigger conversation of how do you prioritize offensive line. They got all these guys who are extra versatile, who can play guard and tackle. We just talked about 5 guys who can play tackle and guard. You got a few guys who can play center and guard. At that point, it feels like you have the flexibility and the ability to only carry 10 guys and be just fine. Maybe having one guy like a Jonah Monheim or like Wyatt Millum sneak onto the practice squad. Wyatt might be a little bit more difficult, but you get my point. So yeah, if we're talking, I think it's going to be closer to 10. I don't know that they're going to go to that 12 number.
I think it'll be 11. I think it'll be 11.
It'll be 11?
The only reason it'll be 10, in my opinion, is if they bite the bullet and they cut Fortner. But yeah, I
expect that. I actually expect that to happen. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Then you're saying 10. Then I'm saying 11. I think because if they didn't have two rookies that they had to keep, essentially had to keep, unless somehow Jonah Monheim's a complete bust at camp, which I don't foresee, right? I got 11. I got 11.
Yeah, so you got Monheim, who's played tackle, who's played guard, who's played center most recently, and he has that flexibility across the board, but also his strongest position, obviously, being center, but still needing a little bit of development. I can see a world, especially as a 7th-round draft pick, that they feel like they can sneak him onto that practice squad, and that's where it becomes a little bit iffy, because then all of a sudden, Luke Fortner's your 10th, 11th guy. So I obviously have 5 starting guys.
Yeah, if they cut Fortner, Monheim's a lock. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. So we got the 5 starting guys: Walker Little, Ezra Cleveland, Robert Hainsey, Patrick McCarry, Anton Harrison. That's the 5 reasonably likely starters. You got Fred Johnson, Chuma Edoga, which I'm questionable on, but he's swing tackle experience, small contract, short contract. But Wyatt Millum, Jonah Monheim, and then that's the 10th spot where I'm kind of getting a little bit, all right, whether it's going to be Cole Van Lannon, whether it's going to be Cooper Hodges, that's going to be that final fight for that interior O-line conversation. Because
I think they take them both, and that's where I get 11. I think they take them both.
Well, so many of these guys have, like, again, Cole Van Lannon is going to be your tackle, but he has tackle and guard versatility. That's kind of why you would lean that way. Cooper Hodges is primarily going to be just a guard option. So if that is the case with his injury history, he could end up being the odd man out and maybe that practice squad guy who you're just hoping to kind of keep after his injury last 2 years. Maybe you just want to see him develop in this scheme and see what that looks like, possibly. But that's kind of where I'm leaning. So it's going to be that competition between Cole Van Lannon, who gives you swing guard and swing tackle versatility, versus Javon Foster versus Cooper Hodges. And I'm probably leaning Cole Van Lannon just because of that versatility that they've shown us that they want everywhere else. They're absolutely going to want that at that 10th spot. You say 11, so you're saying Cole Van Lannon, I'm presuming, and Cooper Hodges?
Yeah. I think they keep them both when you were breaking those two down.
Okay. Cool. Then that's the answer to the question, 904 Funk. I mean, we got 10, me, or 11, Kyle, offensive lineman on your final 53-man roster when everything's kind of said and done, discounting any injuries in camp or anything along those lines.
Your versatility point, though, is spot on, though. That's the reason it's not going to be 12. You're 100% right there, in my opinion.
Yeah, if they carry 12, it's because they've seen some significant injuries in camp or something along those lines, where they just felt like, hey, man, we can't risk this. But outside of that, I don't see it. So, yeah, that's what we're looking at. And so this is our O-line episode. 10 to 11 final O-linemen. Your offensive line is going to be a very intriguing conversation, especially though that interior O-line. And weirdly, we might be looking back at after this offseason and saying, hey, actually, the tackle conversation was the most intriguing part of all of this. Anton Harrison and Walker Little. So
I tried to tell you why that might happen, and actually, you had to with your hot take episode for sure. But Travis C. Holmes, tell the world.
Yeah, man. You can find me on all the socials, Travis D. Holmes, Blue Sky, X, Twitter, etc. But again, like and subscribe to Duval Dive on YouTube. Again, starting June 2nd, I believe that's a Tuesday. That first episode will exclusively be aired on the Duval Dive on YouTube for the video. Audio stays the same. So yeah, if you want to continue consuming the Duval Dive, please like and subscribe us on the Duval Dive on YouTube. But yeah, BigCatCountry.com. We're going to have you guys covered for all the upcoming OTAs, wrapping those up, and your future mandatory minicamp. That's also. So, yeah, we're going to keep this thing going. Where can you be found, sir?
June 2nd is a Monday where you will be at practice with the Jacksonville Jaguars. So look out. That's okay. I mean, this is how hard you're working, man. This is what the people need to understand. Travis T. Holmes, personal champion, Duval Dive. Give him props, Duval Divers. Anyways, of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. Thank you very much for everything you're doing. One more big thank you to Certoba Media and the Sports Media Den as well for jumping out and helping us here early in our development. But yes, like and subscribe to Duval Dive YouTube channel, please, please, please. Of course, if you're listening on the pods, we love you just as much there. We'll have more announcements coming regarding that sooner than later. But for my good friend Travis D. Holmes, this is Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the student of the game. And of course, my writings with the Jacksonville Jaguars and Orlando Magic at Fans First Sports Network. Till next time, class dismiss.